welcome back to round 3 of the Super Series. This weekend we are at Donington Park on the full GP layout. I haven't been here since my first year in the Division 1, so just trying to pick up the track again on the test day today and yeah, just see how well the chassis is handling. We have one practice coming up very shortly where we're just going to go out like normal, just sort of cut our laps, see how the kart is handling. We've got brand new brake discs on the back again, and we've done the whole sort of brake system, so hopefully that should be good. So yeah, just testing that out as well, finding out if we've got the gearing correct as well, and then yeah, giving it a go. So this weekend we are getting to do the rerun race that we lost out at Snetterton, which is the O-plate race, which obviously I should be starting second in that, I believe. So yeah, we'll be starting on the front row, I'm hoping, and obviously yeah, the winner of that race wins the O-plate, which we won in a 125. I'm still yet to win any kind of special plate apart from that number 1 plate in the Division 1. Then obviously yeah, we've got 3 races for the championship, and the last one being a race for GP plate. So again, 2 chances of that, coming away with a little title this weekend. This track wasn't my strongest when we were here 2 years ago, but again, it was in my first season and I definitely feel like I've improved quite a lot since then. I think my best lap time I did was a 128, but we were starting at like 133s and so on. So in the first practice, if we can maybe get anywhere near 130, we might be around the right area. And then hopefully, if we do go out in the second practice later today, then we can be trying to push someone near the 129s, maybe the 128s, if not faster. I think the quickest lap time we had 2 years ago was a 1 minute 27.5 set by Liam. So we're going to head out for the first practice and then see how we get on. Okay, so that is both sessions done for today, and in the first session my GoPro actually overheated. It is a warm one today, but yeah, overheated and corrupted the footage, so I got no footage on board of the first session. But yeah, all that actually happened in the first one really was as we left the pits and I'm going down the start straight, the engine bogged itself up a bit and it just felt like the power valve weren't kicking in, and it felt like it was running on 1 cylinder. But once that cleared itself, the kart started to go. During the session, as soon as we went into some of the slower parts of the track and the engine had actually, or the revs had dropped down, yeah, the kart didn't feel like it released very well. So when we did come in, we did notice that the power valve was actually loose in the front cylinder, so we've managed to cure that one for the second session. But yeah, during the first session we got down to a 1 minute 29 point something, which is obviously sort of where we want it to be really. My quickest I've ever done around here is a 128, and yeah, obviously I want it to be at least around the 1 minute 30, because obviously we're on quite dead tyres as well. So yeah, when it comes to the race day, we'll have better tyres on as well, which will make the kart go quicker anyway. For the second session, what we decided to do is we added a little bit more rear wing onto the back of the kart, and we did just try and move in the rear hubs, because in the last corner, for whatever reason, I'm just losing the rear end. So through the fast stuff, the kart was handling really well, which is obviously all the fast flow and stuff where the downforce is coming into it and the aero. Into the last corner, because you're not on the throttle going in, it's not fast, it's all down to the mechanical grip of the kart. So we've tried to adjust that, but yeah, in the second session when we were going around the last corner, it still didn't quite feel very good. So I don't know whether it's just a lack of grip on the circuit or whether it's just something I'm doing, but I don't remember it being that bad when I've been here before 2 years ago. So it is an area where hopefully we can try and improve as the weekend goes on, because yeah, I don't want to be losing too much time there. But in the second session we obviously focused on improving the line through the chicane again, which definitely a lot more happy with. Obviously the goal was just to try and straight line the first part of the chicane, which even though with track limits you think you shouldn't be able to do, when we were here 2 years ago they didn't penalise anyone for track limits, and I kept it within the white lines and I lost a lot of time. So in the second session we did go out, and at the start I just let some of the other Div 1s just sort of stay in front, because the goal was just to see if we could chase them down, see if the engine was pulling as well, see if we could catch them through the corners. So a couple of them we managed to catch and get past, and then I was trying my best to catch Ross, who was in front. To be honest, it seemed like it was quite even. I caught him in some areas of the track. I feel like he was quicker than me, especially out of some of the corners, so it's an area where I feel like I need to improve. Whether it was just the engine not feeling the best, I don't know. So top speeds there, out of the corners it is just a little bit slower. With the changes we made to the rear wing and the back, it made crane a curve this session so much more planted, which was really nice. But what I was actually starting to struggle with is through turn 1 and a couple of the other corners, as I'm turning it in, I feel like the back had too much grip, and it was then sort of forcing the front to push on more, so I'm turning the wheel a little bit more, which was then causing the rear end to slide. So I wasn't able to basically make the corner a shorter line. I was running really wide and almost out to the exit, as well as the rear end was still sliding out on the exit, so I wasn't getting the best drive out of the corner. So it's something we're going to have a look at. We're going to probably leave the kart how it is for qualifying in the morning, and then after qualifying we'll see. If I feel like I need a little bit more front end grip, we're going to obviously just probably drop the front maybe, but if the new tyres that we put on seem to solve it, then yeah, we'll leave that. But we're now just going to get ready, probably go for a bit of a track walk as well, because I want to go and have a look at some of the other curbs around the track to see how flat they are, and if I believe like the kart can take a few more of them. The old hairpin is one of the main ones I want to have a look at, because I definitely feel like I can take a bit of the curb in there. It's just trying to convince myself to turn in. So we're going to go have a walk around the track and go and see what that curb looks like, have a look at the chicane one as well, and then yeah, we'll get ready, and we're out early in the morning, so we'll see you before qualifying. So qualifying is over and we've ended P2. Went out in the session, new tyres on, and even though we got down to the grid early, we were still the last row out, so had quite a bit of traffic to get through, which was just what we were trying to do on the first few laps. Obviously get some heat into the tyres because they're new, and then obviously as we were just trying to get some clear laps in, there was normally some traffic in front, so it was just trying to time it right to not lose as much time as possible. We got 2 decent laps in, which I think would have been quick enough to put me P2. But yeah, on my quickest lap there was one area on the track where I was sort of just behind another driver, and I felt myself just going a little bit slower than I wanted to, so I knew I could go a little bit quicker. So headed a little bit further around, went for one last flying lap, and on that last flying lap the predicted lap time was into the 1:27s, which was going to be my best time. And yeah, as I just come down to the Melbourne loop, there's 3 karts in front, so I got past the first 2, and then obviously as I went for the brakes it was a bit later than normal, trying to get it stopped. I could see the gap closing very quickly, and I committed to the inside. I was hoping that the other driver would see me and sort of last minute bail out of it, but yeah, they didn't see me because I came in a bit too late, and yeah, I couldn't get it stopped. And just as I got to the inside and tried to brake a bit more, the kart just understeered and we did go into the side of him. So all on me, that's my fault. Obviously as we made the contact it did pop the tyre off the rim, so I had to nurse it back round to the pit lane, and that was my session over with. So we're still lucky we finished P2. Apologies to the driver that we did hit. I hope I haven't caused any damage to the kart. I did try to go around the paddock to find them, but I couldn't actually find them. So we have just come in, we had to fiberglass the front nose up a bit and the side pods. The nose cone seems a bit lower to the floor than what we normally have it at, so we're not sure how well it's going to handle. We don't want to change it too much just in case. It is the O-plate race now that we're getting ready to go out for. Hopefully the kart is handling well. Hopefully there's not any extra damage that we've not been able to see. Yeah, we'll see how we get on. So this is the rerun from the Snetterton race, so we are on P2 for this anyway. There's a couple of less karts on the grid for what it's going to be for the rest of the weekend, so let's see. The main aim for this one is to try and get first place, get that O-plate, but yeah, good practice, ready for the rest of the weekend. So we headed into the O-plate race, and as we headed onto the track, it was just the usual left to right, just one to see if the kart was handling right, because just before we went out we had noticed that the camber of the wheels was a little bit off, and we could see one of the uprights was bent from obviously the qualifying incident. So we headed off the line, and as we were heading to the first corner, if you watch the steering wheel you can see me turn for the corner and it didn't quite do what I wanted to, so I had to turn more, and then the upright on the front right had actually given way. So if you watch it back in slow motion, watch where the arrow is pointing up to the upright, so it's in the right place now, and as we start to turn, next thing it snaps and then obviously drops out of place. So all of a sudden I now had no usual feeling in the steering wheel, but at this point I hadn't quite realised what had happened, so we headed down Cranley Curve and we kept it absolutely pinned down here as well, and through the left it was just wobbling a little bit more than usual. Headed into the right, and yeah, all of a sudden it just decided that it wanted to understeer all the way through, and as you can see the movement of the the wheel going up the hill, and at this point I hit the brakes, the wheel was in the air, and as it come down and hit the track, smoke come from the tyre, and you can see me now just having a quick look over. I realised what had happened, and it was at this point I decided that we had to retire the kart because it was lap 1. If we were somewhere near the end, I might have tried to nurse it home, but it was lap 1. I didn't want to do any more damage because the tyre was sitting at a funny angle. So yeah, end of lap 1, we had to retire from the race. And obviously as we headed in, I got out and had a look, and yeah, you can see the front upright had now snapped away from the thread, and the wheel was obviously just sitting at a funny angle. So unfortunately that was the DNF. The bit that didn't make sense is the upright that snapped was the complete opposite side to the one that we'd bent in qualifying. So obviously now it was time to quickly try and get that sorted, ready for obviously the race 1 of the weekend. And obviously because the other side was bent as well, we had to replace both of them. So stripped the kart down, got some, 2 new ones, and then yeah, it was just a job on to get the kart repaired and ready for the next race. So with the 2 new uprights in place, it was now just time to set the track in, the toe out, the camber of the wheels back to our normal settings that we have. And once we'd done that, it was then just time to make sure everything was tight, in place, and obviously all good to go. Then once that was done, we put the nose cone back on. We did just quickly drop it on the floor and check the front ride height as well to make sure we had that ready. And then it was time to see if everything we'd done was going to work for the actual race 1 of the weekend, but obviously the second race for us. So kart was all fixed now, and it was time to hit the track for race 1. So did the usual, left to right. Kart felt so much better than it did in the one before. So off the race start this time, we did get a really good start, but as we head into the first corner, I have some gear issues, which we did later on in the weekend find out we had an issue with the gear lever getting stuck on the seat. But just want you to listen to the gear changes as we head into the first corner. So as you just heard there, we ended up in a too high gear, and as I went down, it just went into like neutral. So as I went down again, it went into like first, I think. And then obviously we were just revving too high, and we lost all the drive. So then it was just time to get my head down and see if we could tag along the back of the drivers in front of us and see if we could get away from the drivers behind. And as we headed on to the back straight, I did notice I didn't quite have the usual straight line speed that we have. Normally in the toe, we can catch the karts in front, but they were definitely starting to pull away. So I carried on pushing hard and realised I was going to have to try and make some time up in the corners and on the brakes. And as we headed into the loop, I sort of felt really good on the brakes, and then on the way out, we started having the same gear issues that we had into the first corner. So as a result of the dodgy gear changes, we'd now just lost 2 more places. So at this point I realised the battle for the win was going to be quite hard because the front 3 had broken away. But I knew I had to try and get back in front of these 2 as quick as I could if I wanted the chance. So as we headed into the first corner, I noticed the kart in front go a little bit tighter going in. So I backed it off to try and get a better cutback and more speed on the exit, which we managed to do. And then it was just time to try and put my head down and chase. A couple of laps later, and Ross had actually now caught up with Matt, who was in front, and we're on board with Matt now. And as I noticed them 2 start to battle, I thought this was my time to now see if we could put some quick times in, a couple of corners, and see if we can now get on the back and join the battle. So So we've been having a good battle. We're putting some quick times in as well, and we're actually catching the car up in front. But a couple of corners ago and on the last lap, you'd have seen me trying to adjust my brake bars because there was 2 corners where I pressed the brake down and the pedal started travelling further. So I knew at this point I had started to overheat the brakes. And as we headed down Craner Curve, we started to catch up some back markers, and because the brake pedal was starting to feel a bit funny, I didn't have the confidence of going in for the move. Obviously that cost me at the bottom, and then Matt managed to sneak his way past as well and get in front. And then as we headed up hill into the right hander, I went for the brakes and I just had nothing at all, so I ended up having to just run a bit wide, and it was at this point I sort of knew if I wanted to finish the race I was going to have to just now back it off on the brakes. But couple of straights later and Matt was then driving over things, chucking them my way, whether it was a distraction task or not, but had no idea what it was that had just come towards me until a couple of laps later we drove around and we saw the zero kart of Paul Platt without a rear wing on the back. So I sort of guessed what it was that he'd been throwing at me, and then yeah, we obviously just nursed the kart home, sort of struggled with the brakes a bit then. Obviously Matt had pulled away by this point as well. And yeah, we brought it home for the finish, but I really enjoyed the race. It was a good battle with Matt, nice clean racing as well. And yeah, and at least we got the finish, and then it was just time to see what changes we could make to the kart. Definitely wanted to go over the brakes as well, give them a full go through. We did find that the brake bars wasn't allowing us to put enough to the front, and it was all on the back, but we managed to get that fixed for the next race. So heading into the next race now, and in this race the main issue I found was actually now with having so much brake bars to the front of the kart, how it technically should be set, I just struggled to get used to it on the first couple of laps. So I found myself on the opening lap when I went for the brake pedal slowing the kart up way too much, and obviously it cost me a couple of places at the start, but I was a lot more confident as the race went on. So a couple of laps in and we found ourselves behind a safety car, but when the lights went off and we got away racing, we just didn't quite have the straight line speed that I noticed we had, normally and during the weekend. So we worked really hard on trying to catch Costa in front, but obviously off the restart, we didn't get the best start and we were quite a way behind. We then had a good lap where we managed to close the gap to him, and on the next lap as we hit turn 1, we managed to sneak up the inside on the exit. And then I noticed it was Matt in front of me, so I was hoping that we'd be able to carry on the battle that we had in the previous race. But unfortunately for him in this one, his engine had just started to misfire and he was spluttering quite a lot, so he had no straight line speed at all, so we just managed to drive past him like he was standing still. And even when I had a look behind later on, I noticed that we had a big gap. So for me now, it was just a target of trying to put some good laps in, get a good qualifying lap to start the next race in, and just see what time we could do in comparison to the leaders. So after 2 clear laps and 100% sticking to the track limits through the chicane, we come home in a P3. And yeah, what we were really happy with about this race was the fact that I managed to keep the brake pedal all the way to the end. So we didn't overheat it, the brake pedal felt good, so we managed to fix that issue, and I just by the end of it got used to how the brake was feeling and having a lot more brake bars towards the front. But the one thing I did notice in the race was just how slow I felt on the back straight in comparison to what I normally feel. And when we got the data and compared my laps to Lee's laps, we noticed that on the straight we were somewhere between 4 and 6 mile an hour down, but through the corners we were actually going through the corner quicker than Lee was. So we knew it wasn't the driving, we knew the kart was handling really well, because yeah, we had the corner speed, but as soon as we got to the straight line, we just lost what he had. So we got Dave over, he took the engine apart and just had a quick look, and what he thought it was going to be was exactly what it was. It was one of the piston rings had a little chip out of it, which doesn't seem like it was going to affect it that much, but yeah, piston ring had a chip, so we put a new piston ring in, put it back together, started it up, all ran well, and then it was ready for the last race of the weekend. So the race finished and we finished P4, which I was a little bit disappointed about because we definitely had the pace for P3. But when I made the move earlier on in that race, just on the exit, we just noticed that the chain had come really, really slack. So it just meant out of every hairpin and every loop, I just couldn't quite accelerate as hard as I wanted to. And obviously on the last lap, you would have heard that as I held it flat out, it just was slipping and jumping around. So I'm just going to replay one lap during the race when the chain was good, and then a comparison to how it was on the last lap, just for you to be able to hear the difference in what it was like. But yeah, that was the end of the race. But yeah, P4 overall. So there we have it. That is the end of the weekend for us, and we ended up finishing P3 overall for points for the weekend. So another lot of good points for the championship, but still not that race win that we're really desperately chasing for again this year. But we're slowly getting all the little problems out of the way with the kart. So new chassis this year. We sort of didn't expect to have this many issues, but we understand why it's happening. So we're getting there, but the kart is feeling much better every round, and the brakes are now sorted. We just got to find a little bit more speed from the engine. We're going to use one of the spare engines for the next round at Cadwell just to see if that helps out at all. But next round is at Cadwell, which is probably my favourite track, so I'm hoping to go really, really well there. But yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to all the sponsors so far, all the individuals, all the companies. It's really appreciated. It's helping me obviously keep my dream alive of winning the championship again and keep battling hard for it. Thank you to everyone that is watching the videos and supporting me this way. It again really helps us out. And again, thank you to my dad for the whole weekend. He's just non-stop working, especially this year with all the issues we've had. He doesn't give up on me, keeps the kart going around that track, keeps it safe for me as much as possible, and yeah, I really appreciate it. So hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, like it for us, leave a comment, and I'll see you for the Cadwell round.